We are looking at a map today. Not a physical map, but a chronological one.
Right.
We're tracking a very specific window in history, a few months, maybe even just weeks, where the tension is rising so fast you can almost, feel the static in the air.
It's palpable.
We're opening up a stack of research that covers this period of Jesus's ministry where he is pivoting hard toward Jerusalem.
It's the road to the cross. I mean, that's the key context for everything we're about to discuss.
Yeah.
Everything is happening under the shadow of a single final destination.
And you can feel the shift.
Oh, absolutely. The teaching is shifting. It's becoming more urgent, more polarizing, and frankly, a lot more dangerous for him and for his followers.
And the stakes are, well, they're absolute. We're looking at a period where the opposition, they stop being polite.
Yes.
They aren't just asking curious questions anymore. They are actively setting traps. And in response, the teaching from Jesus, it gets darker, more cryptic, and infinitely more profound.
It does. And to really understand this, because you have to remember, these are some of the most debated and, frankly, misunderstood passages in the entire New Testament, we are going to use a very specific framework. We aren't just reading the text. We have to look at it through 4 distinct lenses.
The 4 portraits. This is the 4-lens framework we've talked about before, but it is absolutely essential for what we're covering today.
Exactly. If you just try to mash the Gospels together, you get a blurry, sort of harmonized image that loses all the detail. But if you separate them, you see the incredible nuance.
Okay, so let's quickly lay those out for everyone again.
Sure. So we have Matthew, who is always showing us Jesus as the king. For Matthew, it's all about royal authority, the kingdom of heaven, fulfilling the law and prophecy.
The Messiah King.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Then we have Mark, who presents Jesus as the servant. Mark's gospel is gritty, it's fast-paced, it's action-oriented. It's about what Jesus does.
Then Luke.
Luke gives us the ultimate man. He's the humanitarian, the one who sees the outcast, the physician who notices the details of human suffering.
And finally, John.
And John. Well, John shows us God. His is the view from eternity. Pre-existence, divinity, sovereign control. It's the cosmic perspective.
So our mission for this deep dive is to take this stack of specific events, these Sabbath controversies, the kingdom parables, the rising threats, and rotate them through these 4 lenses to see what we've been missing.
Exactly.
We're going to be covering Luke chapter 13 and 14, Matthew 13, Mark 4, and we're even dipping into John 11 to see that shadow of the Passover start to fall.
And through it all, we're going to see how Jesus deals with sin, not just as an action, but as a thought process, how he engages in spiritual warfare, and what he reveals about the very nature of reality and God's rule.
So let's start with the controversy. This is where it really heats up. We're in Luke chapter 13, starting at verse 10. The setting is a synagogue, it's the Sabbath, and the tension is, as you said, palpable.
It's a collision of 2 worlds. It's a total collision.
Yeah.
On one side, you have the religious establishment, and it's represented here by the ruler of the synagogue. Yeah. And he views the Sabbath as this fragile ecosystem of rules that must be protected at all costs. It's a boundary marker for Jewish identity.
Don't touch the system.
Don't touch the system. And then on the other side, you have a woman.
Describe her condition for us, because Luke, being the physician, he is very specific here. He doesn't just say she's sick.
He is. And this is where that lens becomes so valuable. He notes she has been bent double for 18 years. And he adds, she could in no wise lift up herself. She cannot straighten up.
So what would that be, medically?
Well, we can't be certain, of course, but it sounds like a severe form of what we'd call spondylitis deformans, or perhaps ankylosing spondylitis. It's a condition where the vertebrae of the spine literally fuse together.
Oh, wow.
Her spine is essentially calcified into a permanent curve. She is locked in that position.
18 years. I really want you listening to just sit with that for a second. That is a generation.
That's a lifetime of suffering.
She has spent 2 decades staring at the dirt. Think about it. She hasn't looked another human being in the eye in almost 20 years. She would know people by their sandals, by the hems of their robes.
She is socially invisible. And we have to remember, in that culture, a deformity like that isn't just a medical issue. It carries a heavy theological stigma.
Right. People will be asking that question from John 9, who sinned, her or her parents?
Exactly. She is considered cursed. She is an outcast right there in the middle of the religious assembly, a living cautionary tale.
And this is where that Luke lens, Jesus as the ultimate man, it just comes into razor-sharp focus.
Yeah.
Because most people in that room would have ignored her or, maybe viewed her as a distraction from the holy service.
A pious distraction, yes. But Jesus sees her. He doesn't wait for her to cry out. He initiates The text says he called her to him
So he singles her out.
in front of everyone. And then uses a phrase that, frankly, should have stopped the entire service cold. He looks at this woman, considered cursed and unclean, and he calls her a daughter of Abraham.
Is that phrasing unusual? We hear son of Abraham all the time in the Old Testament and other writings.
Son of Abraham is common. It's a title of honor, a declaration of covenant rights and heritage, but daughter of Abraham, it is almost completely unique in the literature of that time.
So what's he doing with that phrase?
He is conferring full covenant status, full honor, full belonging on a woman who everyone else in that room viewed as cursed and on the outside. He is saying, you are not outside the family, you are royalty, you belong to the promise just as much as the high priest does. He's restoring her dignity before he even restores her body.
That's the humanity of Jesus right there. But then, looking at the text, there's a darker, a more sinister element here too. He doesn't just say she has a bad back. He diagnoses her with a spirit of infirmity.
Yes, and this is absolutely crucial to understanding what's really going on. This isn't just a medical intervention. Jesus explicitly states a few verses later, this woman whom Satan has bound.
So this is spiritual warfare. This isn't just sickness.
It's a hostage situation. That's the best way to think about it. For 18 long years, this woman has been a prisoner of war in a spiritual conflict.
And this is where the Matthew lens, the king, comes in.
Exactly. Jesus isn't just curing a disease. He is, in the language of his other parables, plundering the strong man's house. He is exercising his royal authority to break a chain authorized by the enemy. It is an act of sovereign liberation.
So he lays his hands on her, and immediately she is made straight.
She stands up, and what does she do? She glorifies God. The first face she sees clearly in 18 years is the face of her liberator.
Which makes the reaction of the synagogue ruler so incredibly jarringly out of place.
It's almost unbelievable.
You have a woman who has been locked in a physical prison for 2 decades, unfolding herself, bones probably snapping and cracking back into alignment, weeping with joy. And the guy in charge stands up and starts talking about the calendar.
It is breathtaking in its coldness, isn't it? The text says he was indignant, but notice his cowardice. He doesn't have the courage to address Jesus directly.
No, he yells at the crowd.
He yells at the crowd, there are 6 days in which men ought to work. Therefore, come and be healed on them and not on the Sabbath day.
It's just bureaucratic insanity. Sorry, ma'am. The miracle window is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Please come back during regular business hours.
It is the ultimate elevation of system over substance, of rule over relationship. And this is the sin of thought we often talk about. His mind is so calcified by legalism, so rigid, that he sees a violation of religious roster rather than the liberation of a human being.
He honestly thinks he's defending God.
That's the tragedy of it. He thinks he is defending God's honor, but he is actually opposing the very work of God unfolding right in front of him. He's become a gatekeeper for a system that God is trying to break open.
And Jesus doesn't let it slide for a second. He calls him out directly, you hypocrite.
And he doesn't just call him a name. He uses a very specific, very clever rabbinic argument to completely dismantle his position. The notes call it qual wahomer.
Qual wahomer, what is that exactly?
All right, qual wahomer. It's a standard form of rabbinic hermeneutic, a way of interpreting scripture. It literally means light and heavy. It's a logic argument. If something is true in a minor case, which is the light case, then how much more true must it be in a major case, the heavy case?
An argument from the lesser to the greater.
That's it. So walk us through the light case Jesus uses here.
The light case is an animal. Jesus points out that every single person in that room, even the strictest, most rule-obsessed Pharisee, would untie their ox or their donkey on the Sabbath to lead it to water.
It was a permitted work. You wouldn't let an animal suffer thirst for 24 hours just because it was the Sabbath. That was considered basic compassion.
And also, protecting your investment.
Of course. That's the light case caring for your property, for your financial assets.
And so the heavy case is the woman.
Exactly. The logic is devastatingly simple. If you will loosen a literal knot from around a donkey's neck so it can drink, how can you possibly object to God loosening a spiritual knot that Satan himself tied around a daughter of Abraham's spine 18 years ago?
It just completely exposes their value system. It's brutal. They value their livestock, their assets, more than the suffering of this woman.
It absolutely destroys them. Luke tells us that all his adversaries were put to shame. They were humiliated. They couldn't answer because the logic is unassailable.
And the crowd rejoiced.
Because the crowd gets it. They see the truth in it. Jesus is redefining the Sabbath right in front of them. It was made for rest, yes, but its ultimate purpose is restoration. It was a day designed to celebrate freedom from bondage. You have to remember the Exodus context. So healing her, loosing her from bondage, was the most Sabbath thing Jesus could possibly do.
This whole theme of liberty versus legalism, it just keeps popping up. It's like a drumbeat in this section of his ministry. And it happens again almost immediately in Luke chapter 14, verses 1-6.
Yes, different setting, but it's the exact same trap.
So now they're not in the synagogue. They're at a dinner party at the house of a prominent Pharisee.
One of the rulers of the Pharisees, Luke says. So this is a high-stakes meal, and the text is clear. They are watching him closely. This isn't a friendly dinner, it's an ambush.
And they've planted someone there.
It certainly seems so. They've placed a man with dropsy right in front of him.
Now, dropsy, that's what we would call edema, right? Severe fluid retention.
Yes, painful and very unsightly swelling of the body. But we also have to understand the cultural metaphor at play. In the Greco-Roman world, and even in some Jewish thought, dropsy was often used as a symbol for greed or insatiable desire.
How so?
The thinking was, the more water a person with dropsy drinks, the thirstier they become. The swelling just gets worse. So it became a living metaphor for avarice, for a desire that can never be satisfied.
So in a way, the man himself might be a living symbol of their own spiritual greed for power and control.
It is highly probable that Jesus, and perhaps even Luke, saw the profound irony there. They, filled with greed for status, are using a man suffering from a condition associated with greed to trap Jesus.
So Jesus sees the man, he sees the trap, and again he uses a question to trap the trappers.
He does. He turns to the lawyers and Pharisees and asks point blank, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?"
And they just stay silent.
Total silence.
Yeah.
Because they've learned their lesson from the synagogue. He's got them in a logic trap.
Explain that. What are their options?
Well, if they say, no, it's not lawful, they look like heartless monsters in front of everyone at the dinner party. They condemn a man to suffering for the sake of a rule.
Okay.
But if they say, yes, it is lawful, they completely surrender their legalistic high ground. They give up the very weapon they were trying to use against him.
Yeah.
So they say nothing.
So Jesus just does the work.
This is where we see that Mark lends the servant shining through. Even in Luke's account, he just acts. He took him and healed him and let him go. No fanfare, no big speech first, just quiet, compassionate service.
And then he twists the knife with another Qual Homer argument.
After the fact, yes.
Yeah.
He says, which of you, having a son or an ox that has fallen into a well on a Sabbath day, will not immediately pull him out?
And again, silence.
They could not answer him. He's cleared the deck. He's established what the kingdom is not. It's not this rigid, cold, legalistic system.
Right. So now he can pivot to explain what the kingdom is. And this brings us to this incredible, dense series of parables, the parables of the kingdom.
Yes, these are absolutely critical. We're primarily in Matthew 13 for this section, though Mark and Luke have versions of some of them. And Jesus starts speaking in what sound like simple riddles about agriculture and everyday life.
But they are anything but simple.
Not at all. And the first one we need to really unpack is the parable of the tares, or as some translations call them, the weeds.
This one has always unsettled me. Matthew chapter 13, starting at verse 24, you have a farmer who sows good seed in his field.
The good seed, which Jesus will later identify as the sons of the kingdom.
And then, while everyone is sleeping, an enemy comes in at night and sows weeds right in among the wheat.
But it's not just any weed. The Greek word here is zizania, which we believe refers to a specific plant called bearded darnel.
Darnel. What's significant about that?
It's a mimic. In the early stages of its growth, darnel looks biologically almost identically like wheat. You cannot tell them apart just by looking at the stalks.
So you can't distinguish the real from the fake.
Not until the ear of the grain actually forms. And to make it worse, darnel is often infected with a fungus that is poisonous. If you harvest it and grind it up with the weed, the flour can cause hallucinations, nausea, even death in rare cases. It was sometimes called madweed.
So this isn't just planting weeds. This is an act of sabotage. It's bioterrorism.
It is a malicious, calculated act to destroy the harvest. And the servants in the parable, they see this, and they want to do what most religious zealots throughout history want to do. They want to launch an inquisition. Let us go and gather them up.
Rip them out, purify the field, a holy war.
Exactly. And the master of the field, and this is that king lens from Matthew shining through, says no.
Why not? Why let the poison grow with the food?
His reasoning is profound. He says, no, lest while you gather up the tares, you also uproot the wheat with them.
Their roots are intertwined.
Underground, or you can't see, the root systems have become tangled together. You cannot remove the counterfeit without causing catastrophic damage to the authentic. And this is an incredibly profound statement on the nature of the world we live in, and even the visible church.
So the kingdom of heaven in its current form is a mixed bag.
It's a field where the sons of the kingdom and the sons of the wicked one are allowed to coexist side by side. And Jesus is very clear when he interprets this for disciples later in verses 36 through 43. He leaves no ambiguity.
Right. He says the sower is the son of man, the field is the world.
And the enemy who sowed the tares is the devil. This isn't an accident. It's deliberate sabotage. This is spiritual warfare playing out in the soil of human history.
But the king's response is patience. The judgment is delayed.
The judgment is delayed until the harvest, which Jesus says is the end of the age. This parable tells us that we should not be surprised when we see evil, hypocrisy, and counterfeit faith within the visible structures of Christianity or the world at large.
The king knows it's there.
The king knows it's there, and he's allowing it for a time, for the sake of protecting the wheat. The furnace of fire is coming for the tares, but not yet. The time for separating isn't our job.
That is a very heavy reality to live in.
It is.
But then he shifts almost immediately to the growth of the kingdom with the parable of the mustard seed. We see this in Matthew 13, Mark 4, and Luke 13, and I feel like I've heard this preached 1,000 times as a simple success story.
It's the go-to parable for church growth campaigns.
Right. Small seed, big tree, yay us. We started small, but look how big and influential we've become.
And that is the standard positive interpretation. And if you look through Luke's lens, the focus on Gentile inclusion, or just the general optimistic view of the gospel spreading, that holds up. The kingdom starts with one obscure rabbi and a dozen followers, and grows to become a global movement that provides shelter for the nations.
And that imagery, the birds of the air nesting in the branches, that's Old Testament language, isn't it?
It is. It's imagery straight from places like Daniel chapter 4 and Ezekiel 17. In those contexts, a great tree with birds in its branches represents a great empire, a superpower that provides shelter and a place for the nations. So Jesus could be saying his kingdom will become that.
Our notes point out a significant controversy here. Some scholars, a minority to be sure, think this is actually a negative parable.
It's a fascinating and I think a very important minority view that we have to consider if we are taking the entire context of Matthew 13 seriously.
Okay, lay it out.
Well, look at the context. We just came from the parable of the tares, a story of corruption. And in the very first parable of this chapter, the parable of the sower, who did the birds of the air represent?
The birds came and snatched the seed away from the path. So that was the evil one, Satan.
Exactly. So if we're being consistent in our interpretation of Jesus' symbols within the same sermon, birds would seem to represent evil agents.
Okay, that's one point. What's the other?
The other is botanical. A mustard plant, in that part of the world, is a shrub. It grows large for an herb, yes, maybe 6 to 10 feet tall, but it is not naturally a great tree that you could compare to a cedar of Lebanon from Ezekiel's prophecies.
So if it becomes this giant, massive tree, it's monstrous, it's abnormal.
It's an abnormal, unnatural growth. The argument from this perspective is that Jesus might be prophesying that the visible institutional church will become a massive, unwieldy political power structure, a worldly empire that actually ends up harboring the enemies of God, the birds, within its very branches.
Wow. So instead of a humble, life-giving herb garden, it becomes this imperial monstrosity filled with, vultures and crows.
It's a sobering thought. But it fits perfectly with the theme of the tares, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The theme of corruption being mixed in with the holy, the counterfeit, growing alongside the authentic.
It does. It really does. And the very next parable of the leaven seems to almost back that up. Matthew 13, verse 33. A woman hides leaven in 3 measures of meal until it was all leavened.
And again, the Sunday school version is positive. The gospel is like leaven. It spreads quietly and influences the whole world for good.
But biblically, leaven is almost always a symbol for sin or corruption.
Overwhelmingly so. Think about it. Passover requires unleavened bread. In 1 Corinthians 5, Paul talks about the leaven of malice and wickedness. Jesus himself says, "Beware the leaven of the Pharisees," which he identifies as hypocrisy.
So 99% of the time in Scripture, leaven is bad news. It ferments, it puffs up, it corrupts. So is Jesus really saying his kingdom is like corruption spreading?
That feels wrong, doesn't it?
It does.
So perhaps he is subverting the symbol. He might not be commenting on the moral quality of leaven, but on its mechanism.
how it works.
Exactly. The kingdom is like leaven in its method of operation. It works silently, invisibly from the inside out. And its influence, once started, is pervasive and irresistible. It will eventually saturate the entire lump of dough.
So you can read that two ways.
You can. You can see it as the gospel permeating all of society and transforming it from within, which is the positive view. Or, staying with the theme of the tares and the strange mustard tree, you could see it as a warning that false doctrine and corruption will silently permeate the entire visible church.
Either way, the physics are the same. Total saturation.
It's uncontrollable. You can't stop the fermentation once it starts. The kingdom, for good or for ill in its visible form, has an unstoppable, pervasive power.
I want to pause for a second on the why. Why is he speaking in these codes? Matthew actually tells us the disciples ask him that directly. Why do you speak to them in parables?
It's a great question, and Jesus gives a chilling two-part answer. He says the purpose of the parables is both to reveal and to conceal truth.
That seems like a complete contradiction.
It does, but it's actually a filter. Think of it like a spiritual filter. To the hungry heart, the disciple who leans in and asks, "What is this moon?" The parable is a doorway into deeper understanding. It invites you to dig. It rewards curiosity.
But to the other heart.
But to the hardened heart, the Pharisee standing in the back with his arms crossed, the cynical scribe, the parable is a veil. He hears a nice little story about farming or baking and walks away thinking, well, that was irrelevant, or what a simpleton. He's judged by the very story that was meant to save him.
So the parable itself is actually a form of judgment. It gives people what they want. If you want truth, you get more. If you want to stay in your arrogance, the truth is hidden from you.
It is judicial hardening. Yeah. And Matthew confirms this by quoting from Psalm 78, verse 2. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old.
Dark sayings. It's not how we usually think of parables.
No, we think of them as simple stories for children. But the Hebrew means riddles, enigmas. Jesus is stepping fully into his role as the prophet king, revealing the source code of the universe, the secrets hidden since the foundation of the world, but he's encrypting it.
So only the faithful have the key to decrypt it.
Precisely. It prevents the arrogant and the rebellious from accessing the sacred mysteries of God while they are still in a state of opposition to him. It's a terrifying mercy.
That is haunting. It's like he's hiding the truth in plain sight.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay, so after this, Jesus shifts gears. The text in Matthew 13 says he leaves the crowds, goes inside the house, and the audience changes. Now it's just the disciples.
This is crucial. The teaching becomes more intimate, more direct, and he gives them 3 more parables that are all about the supreme value of the kingdom.
The hidden treasure and the pearl of great price, Matthew 13, verses 44 to 46.
These are short, punchy, and incredibly powerful.
A man finds a treasure hidden in a field. He hides it again, and then in his joy, he goes and sells everything he has and buys that field.
And then a merchant looking for 5 pearls finds 1 pearl of great price, and he goes and sells everything he has and buys it.
Okay, now I have to be honest. My entire life, I have heard this preached one way.
Let me guess. You are the man or the merchant?
I am the man. Jesus is the treasure. And the moral of the story is that I need to give up my worldly possessions, my bad habits, my Xbox, whatever, to buy Jesus and gain salvation.
It's the human-centric reading. And listen, on a devotional level, there's truth there. Discipleship costs you everything. Following Jesus requires total commitment. But structurally, as a piece of theology, that interpretation has a massive flaw.
And what's the flaw?
You and I are spiritually bankrupt.
Right.
We have no currency with which to buy the kingdom of heaven. Romans tells us we are dead in our trespasses. A dead man can't sell anything, and he certainly can't buy a field. We're the ones in debt.
So we have to flip the lens.
You have to flip the lens. Use Matthew's lens. Who is the king in this story? Who is the one with the resources?
Jesus.
Jesus is the man. Jesus is the merchant. Now, what's the field?
Well, earlier he said the field is the world.
The field is the world. For God so loved the world. So Jesus comes into the world. And what does he find hidden in the dirt of the world?
The treasure.
The church. The elect. His people. Think about the theology here. The treasure is hidden, it's covered in mud, it looks like nothing of value to the casual observer, but the man knows its true worth.
And notice, he doesn't just steal the treasure.
No, he buys the whole field. He redeems the entire cosmos to secure his people. It's an act of cosmic redemption.
And the cost? He sold all that he had.
What did Jesus sell? Philippians chapter 2. He emptied himself. He gave up the glory of heaven, his divine prerogatives, his status, his very life. He bankrupted heaven, you could say, to buy the field that contained his treasure.
That completely changes the emotional weight of the story. It is not about me making a heroic sacrifice for God. It's about God's reckless, extravagant sacrifice for me.
Is the gospel in two beautiful sentences. The merchant Jesus is actively seeking the pearl. He finds it, and he pays the ultimate price to acquire it. It emphasizes the immense, almost unbelievable value the king places on his subjects.
But just so we don't get too arrogant, thinking we're this shiny, perfect pearl, he immediately hits us with the final parable in this set, the net, verses 47 to 50.
A dragnet. It's a perfect bookend to the terrace. A dragnet is huge. You stretch it between boats and drag along the sea bottom. It catches everything.
Good fish, bad fish, crabs, seaweed, old boots.
Everything. So the sea is the world, the nations. The net is the influence of the gospel going out. And it brings in all kinds.
But the sorting happens later.
The sorting happens on the shore at the end of the age. It's the exact same theme as the terrace. The angels are the ones who do the separating. The bad fish are thrown into the furnace of fire.
It's a warning against what you might call easy believism.
Absolutely. It's a warning that just because you are in the net, just because you are caught up in the Christian subculture, you go to church, you're part of the visible institution, that doesn't guarantee you are one of the good fish. The final judgment is real, and it is discerning.
And Jesus closes out this entire private teaching session by asking them, have you understood all these things? And they say yes.
And his response is fascinating. He says, therefore, every scribe who's been trained for the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house, who brings out of his treasure what is new and what is old.
So a scribe of the kingdom, what is he getting at there?
I think this is so key for us today, for anyone who wants to understand the Bible. Jesus isn't abolishing the Old Testament, the old treasures. He is fulfilling them and illuminating them with the new light of the gospel. A true teacher, a true disciple, integrates the law and the prophets with the revelation of Jesus. It's not one or the other. It's a unified story.
You have to be able to bring out both.
You have to value both the new and the old treasures.
Okay, so let's shift back to the road. The tension is building. We're back in Luke chapter 13, verse 22. It says, Jesus is going through towns and villages, teaching and making his way to Jerusalem.
The destination is always there. It's the backdrop to everything.
And someone in the crowd throws out a speculative, almost a statistical question. Lord, will those who are saved be few?
It's the classic headcount question. What are the demographics of heaven? Are we talking about a minority report? Is it an exclusive club, or is it a big party?
And notice, Jesus completely refuses to answer the data question.
He never does. He always pivots from the speculative to the personal. He doesn't answer how many, he answers how.
And what he says is, strive to enter through the narrow door.
That word strive, it's incredibly important. The Greek is agonizomai.
It's where we get our word agonize.
Exactly. It implies combat. It's an athletic term for giving your all in a contest. It's a military term for fighting for your life. It is not a passive, casual drifting through a wide gate. It's an urgent, desperate fight to get through.
And he adds this terrifying detail. For many, I tell you, will seek to enter and will not be able.
That should send a chill down our spine. It's not enough to just seek in a casual way.
And then he paints this picture of the closed door. The master of the house gets up and shuts the door, and people are left standing outside knocking.
And listen to their argument. It's so telling. They're yelling, Lord, open to us. And when he says, I don't know you, they protest.
What's their protest? Hey, we ate and drank in your presence. You taught in our streets.
That is the argument of proximity, of association. I was around. I went to the conferences. I listened to the deep dive. I had a Jesus is my homeboy t-shirt.
Ouch. Yeah.
But proximity is not relationship. And the master's response is one of the most frightening sentences of the Bible. I tell you, I do not know where you come from. Depart from me, all you workers of iniquity.
And he's quoting the Old Testament there, isn't he?
He is. He's quoting Psalm 6, verse 8. He's speaking as the righteous judge of Israel. And the tragedy is, these people are shocked. They thought they were in.
It connects right back to the tares. The tares look just like wheat, maybe even to themselves until the very end. These people look like followers until the door was shut.
And Jesus drives the point home by saying, people will come from east and west, north and south, and recline at the table in the kingdom of God, while the sons of the kingdom, the people who thought it was their birthright, will be thrown out. The first will be last, and the last will be first.
And right at that moment, in the middle of this intense teaching, some Pharisees come up to him. This is Luke 13, verse 31.
And on the surface, they sound like they're trying to help him.
It sounds like a friendly warning. Get out of here and go away, for Herod wants to kill you.
This is Herod Antipas. We need to remember who this is. This is the man who illegally married his brother's wife, Herodias. This is the man who, at his stepdaughter's request, had John the Baptist arrested and beheaded.
So he's not an idle threat. He is a violent, paranoid, and unstable ruler. He has the power and the will to kill Jesus.
He's a legitimate threat, but Jesus, his response is just astonishing. He doesn't thank them. He doesn't panic. He looks at them and says, "Go and tell that fox."
That fox. We need to correct our cultural ear here for a second. If I call someone a fox today, it usually means they're clever, sly, maybe attractive or cool.
Right, a silver fox or foxy.
Yeah, that's not what he means here.
Not even close. In first-century Jewish culture, calling a man a fox was a deep insult. A lion was a symbol of royalty and power. A fox was a scavenger, a pest, a creature known for being destructive and cunning, but ultimately weak and insignificant.
So Jesus is looking at the military tetrarch of the entire region and basically calling him a rodent.
He is dismissing him as a minor nuisance. And listen to the sovereign authority that comes next. This is the John God lens leaking right through Luke's narrative. Jesus says, "Behold, I cast out demons and perform cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected."
The third day. He's directly referencing the resurrection.
He is operating on a divine timetable that was established before the foundation of the world. He's essentially saying, Herod cannot disrupt my schedule. He cannot kill me today or tomorrow because I am not scheduled to die until Passover in Jerusalem on a cross. A fox cannot stop the lion.
That level of sovereign control is chilling. He isn't a victim fleeing a tyrant. He's a king marching to his coronation, which just happens to look like an execution.
And he laments over Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets, saying he longed to gather them like a hen gathers her chicks. But they were not willing. It's this incredible mix of sovereign power and heartfelt sorrow.
As we get closer to that final week, we can pivot to John's Gospel, chapter 11, verses 55 to 57. The irony just gets dialed up to 11.
It does. John tells us it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, and many were going up from the country to Jerusalem to purify themselves before the feast.
So they're performing ceremonial washings, offering sacrifices, getting ritually clean.
Yes, all in preparation for the great feast that celebrated their liberation from slavery in Egypt.
While at the same time, the chief priests and Pharisees had given orders that if anyone knew where Jesus was, they should report it so they could arrest him.
They are plotting to murder an innocent man.
So I need to wash my hands according to the law so that I can have clean hands to go kill the Messiah.
It is the absolute pinnacle of religious psychosis. This is sin blinding people so completely that they're meticulously preparing for the symbol, the Passover lamb, while simultaneously hunting the reality to which the symbol points.
They are so obsessed with the ritual that they are about to slaughter the God who gave them the ritual in the first place.
It's the ultimate example of the sin we saw in the synagogue ruler. Valuing the system, the tradition, the ritual over the very person of God standing in front of you.
It really highlights how deeply sin can blind you. They genuinely thought they were being holy. They thought they were protecting Israel.
And that is always the scariest kind of sin. The sin that wears a religious mask and carries a sacred text.
Okay, let's wrap up with one final, very practical scene. Segment 6, the social dynamics of the kingdom. Jesus is at another one of these tense dinner parties. We're back in Luke chapter 14, verses 7 to 14.
And he's observing. Luke says he marked how they chose the chief seats. He's watching them play a game of social musical chairs.
Everyone is jockeying for position, trying to get the seats of honor closest to the host. It's a status game. Who's most important here?
And Jesus uses this moment to teach a parable and then to give a direct command. And it's a bombshell. He says, when you are invited, go and sit in the lowest place.
The opposite of what everyone is doing.
The complete opposite. He's teaching the great reversal. In the world's economy, you grab for status. In the kingdom's economy, down is up. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted.
It's a direct rebuke of the pride and self-importance we saw in that synagogue ruler earlier.
And in the Pharisees who are hosting this very dinner.
But then he turns his attention from the guest to the host, and he makes it even more awkward.
He really does. He looks at the man who invited him and says, essentially, let me give you some advice on your guest list. When you throw a party, don't invite your friends, your brothers, your relatives, or your rich neighbors.
Which is everyone you would normally invite.
It's the entire basis of social networking. You invite people who are in your circle, people who can help you, people who can pay you back with a reciprocal invitation.
So who should you invite?
Jesus says, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Why? The reason is the key, because they cannot repay you.
We're taught to network with people who can advance our careers. Jesus says to network with people who have nothing to offer you in return.
He is completely shifting the economy of relationships from transaction to grace. If you invite the rich, you get a nice dinner invitation back. The transaction is complete. You have your reward now. But if you invite the poor, you get your repayment at the resurrection of the righteous.
So he's telling them to invest in a currency that doesn't vest until eternity.
Precisely. It's a direct investment in your eternal portfolio. And it echoes that sentiment Paul later quotes Jesus as saying in Acts chapter 20, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." It's a radical reorientation of our social lives, viewing people not as assets to be exploited, but as souls to be served.
So let's try to pull all of this together. We've used these 4 incredible lenses to look at this very tense, very pivotal moment in Jesus' ministry.
And you can see how they work together, can't you?
You really can. We see the king from Matthew, who declares the field is his, who patiently allows the tares to grow, and who dismisses the petty tyrant Herod as a fox.
And we see the servant from Mark, who doesn't wait for permission, but just quietly takes the man with dropsy, heals him, and sends him on his way. No words needed.
Then there's the ultimate man from Luke, the physician who sees 18 years of suffering and restores a woman's dignity by calling her daughter before he even touches her back.
And woven through it all is God, from John's perspective, the one who is operating on a divine timetable, who is voluntarily marching toward a cross on the 3rd day, completely in control of his own destiny.
It's a harmonic chord, like you said, one Jesus, viewed in 4 distinct but unified dimensions. And what it shows us is a kingdom that is just full of paradoxes.
It is. It's hidden like treasure, but powerful enough to leaven the whole lump. It's exclusive. The door is narrow, yet it deliberately invites the poor and the outcasts. It's patient with evil, allowing the tares to grow, but it promises an absolute and final judgment.
So for you listening to this, after we've covered all this ground, what's the modern application? What's the takeaway?
I think for me, it goes right back to the very beginning. It goes back to the Sabbath. We started with 2 people in bondage in that synagogue.
The woman bent double and the synagogue ruler.
Exactly. One was bound by Satan, a chain she couldn't break. The other was bound by his own rules, his own pride, a chain he wouldn't break. Both were in bondage.
And Jesus came to bring liberty.
And that's the point. The Sabbath rest that God offers isn't just a day off from work. It is a spiritual state of being loosed. Jesus wants to untie the knots. He wants to free you from the spiritual forces that bind you, but also from the religious systems and self-imposed rules that have you trapped.
And that's a question I think we have to leave you with. As you go about your week, which person are you? Are you the Pharisee, stressed out about the rules, trying to maintain your status, terrified of the foxes in your life, judging everyone else? Or are you willing to be the person who just admits they need to be untied?
Are you still trying to buy the field yourself, trying to earn your way in with your good works and religious observance? Or are you resting in the astonishing fact that the merchant king already sold everything he had to buy you?
The door is narrow, but for now, it is open. Strive to enter, not by your own merit, but by trusting the king who paid the price. That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.